Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today I'm test driving the 2017 Toyota Land Cruiser. Not just test driving it, I'm out here in the desert getting it dirty and myself a little bit, really experiencing what this thing's all about, and that's what's coming up. Before we get out on the drive, I've got to talk about styling just a little bit because there is just a little bit new to talk about here. Last year, they gave this a design refresh, which encompassed a whole new front fascia and bumper design, new grille, new headlights, and a new hood. In this hood, when you sit behind the wheel and look at it, it's got a nice deep sculpted look, a little bit taller up here in front, and this is a more horizontal look here, and this chrome wraps around and sort of ties into these headlights pretty nicely. It's a very clean look, very luxurious, and I think more upscale than before, which is good because this thing is upscale, especially when you look at that price tag, which this one here, right around $85,000. So you got to get your money's worth. Now, down low in that front fascia, if you look down at the bottom, there are tow hooks here. They don't make them really showy like on some off-road vehicles, but they are there. And basically, this is a design that's still pretty low key overall. It's meant to have a nice approach angle, and we'll get to that here in a minute. Now, as we come around the side, one thing I want to point out is it's got 18-inch alloy wheels. I point that out because a lot of off-road vehicles, especially in this class, they've gone up to 20 and even 22-inch wheels, and you really can't off-road that effectively. And I'm glad that Toyota stuck with the 18-inch wheel here because that pays dividends not only in ride off-road, but it's much safer for that wheel to have more rubber around it when you're going over rocks like we're about to do. The back of the Land Cruiser really hasn't changed a great deal. You've got taillights that are new design along with some trim treatments that they've tweaked just a little bit. Remaining also the same is the dual opening tailgate they've got here. It's got an upper hatch that allows you to reach in and get in here and get into things, and it also has this lower gate that opens down very much like a pickup truck. It's two different pieces. It's pretty neat if you just want to sit here and relax, if you're doing a picnic or if you're out here tailgating, something like that. It really does make it comfortable and nice, and I really do hope it's something that they never change. All right, my friends, this is what we're here for. This is Butcher Hill at the Butcher Jones Recreation Area just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. This is one of my favorite places to bring a real off-road vehicle that's got a little bit of cred and some toys and some good traction to play with out here. And I got to admit, at first I was a little bit quirky about bringing something that costs this much money out here because this can be a pretty rough to moderate course. Though, if you're really an off-roader, you're going to watch this and say, well, I could have done that in two-wheel drive. But the reality is, for most people, and actually for most vehicles, this does require a locking center diff, which I have engaged. We are in 4-low here. And as we get going here, we'll talk about some of the other things, but I'm going to start by crawling up this pretty steep rock face here, and as we get into this, we'll talk about some of the other features this has, not only for traction but suspension articulation. Now, the nice thing here is when you're in 4-low, this has a really soft throttle tip in, so even if you hit some bumps and ruts, you're not going to be hitting anything going up these moguls and things like that that's going to cause you to throw your foot down on the throttle and move it. This is just nice and smooth, and it keeps it down in your low gears, of course. Now, this has a number of systems that you can employ if you're on really slippery stuff, rocks and sand. It has crawl control, which you can set down here at the knob, and it's got a number of different modes, and basically it will control your brakes and your throttle, and it'll control pretty much everything to get you through some pretty sticky stuff relative to traction. But here, we're really not needing that. This is just rocks. It's nothing too terribly challenging relative to traction. We've got a solid base here, and it's not really hurting us in terms of trying to get through something like mud and snow. So that part's pretty easy. That said, I do have the multi-terrain select system set to rock, which is perfect because that's exactly what we're driving on. And that basically optimizes the traction control system for exactly that, rocks, because it knows rocks like to roll out from under your tires. And so every once in a while here, going over some of these rocks that like to roll around underneath here, I can feel the system sort of kicking in and pushing traction around just a little bit. Now, as I mentioned, this does have the locking center differential. I've got that engaged. Don't need it yet, but I'm going to when I get up here in these moguls. Now, the moguls are interesting because they do require a lot of suspension articulation, and a lot of times if you get into extreme off-road vehicles, one of the tools they have for you is the ability to disconnect your anti-roll bars. Well, This system that this has, the KDSS, Kinetic Dynamic something, the other two I can't remember off the top of my head, but basically it has an automatic hydraulic actuation system that allows the roll control on this to vary a little bit. So when it senses that you're getting into some really deep moguls where you need articulation, it actually softens up that roll control with the anti-roll bars for you, which enables those wheels that want to drop down or get pushed up to sort of go with the flow, and it really helps you with getting through some of these tough spots in exactly that situation. So it's automatic, there's nothing for me to touch. Now I'm looking down here because I've got a pretty sharp rock I'm getting over. This is one of the more technical parts of this hill that you can really feel the terrain select system kicking in and optimizing some of this traction. And I gotta be honest with you, even though I've done this hill so many times in very many different vehicles, this is the most expensive kind of silk purse product that I've taken this hill with, and I'm kind of making sure I don't scrape it anywhere, either the running boards down there on rocks or any trees. But the thing that's striking me here is this is so effortless in this vehicle. Some vehicles you really have to sort of manhandle it, really put some concentration to it, and this vehicle is just, it's like butter, man. It's just really child's play going through here. It's very comfortable. These seats holding me pretty good, and I'm not getting jostled around hardly at all with any of this difficult stuff. It's just rolling right through, and you might see in the picture, or you might not, I've got a Jeep up here ahead of me that's taking their time on some of these different moguls. Easy as pie. Now, we've gotten past the point where the locking center diff is necessary, so I can just turn that off on the fly. We're opening up a little bit. We've gotten to the top of Butcher Hill now, and I gotta tell you, this is the easiest trip up this hill I think I've ever taken. And that really says a lot, because, you know, if you're spending this much money on a vehicle that can take you any place, you want to be able to go any place and get something for your money. And you can get a vehicle that can go here for $20,000. That's not a question. But if you're going to spend this much money, you certainly want to do it with a little bit of luxury and ease, and I'm certainly getting that here. Now I'm at the top of the hill. We're past the point at which I really need 4 low. So I'm going to put this up in neutral, put it up in 4 high. All my traction controls go back on, and off I go. So now we're going to roll a little bit faster here along kind of a trail that's similar to what you might see me driving when we do our washboard road tests. So we're kind of skipping the washboard road test today because this is giving us that same sort of treatment, sort of a rough road at speed. And what it's showing us is how well bolted together this chassis is, how sorted it is when it comes to getting bumps and sort of getting a rhythm to it. And I like doing this because so many vehicles out here really start to feel like a pile. You get lots of rattles and shakes, you get shudders in the steering and suspension, and I'm getting none of that here. You can definitely tell you're driving something that's got a solid truck frame under you. This is a body structure that's very stiff, very solid, and so I'm not getting any rattling or shaking, no indicators in here that this thing feels anything less than its price tag. And that's a good thing, because well, $85K for any vehicle is pretty good, so you certainly hope you're getting your money's worth. My summation here is this thing really feels like a tool out here. A tool. Like, you know, the difference between a Craftsman and a Snap-on. You spend extra money to get into an expensive tool, and you get that feeling when you use it. It feels like you've spent the money, and that's what I get here. So this chassis, I'm very happy with it. I have to rate it highly. That's high praise. The all-wheel drive system works exceptional. Suspension, the solidity, the refinement, the comfort, everything, the whole 9 yards. Very, very happy. 5 out of 5 stars. What's under the hood here is a 5.7 liter dual overhead cam V8, the same engine you're going to find in the Toyota Tundra pickups. Here, 381 horsepower, 401 pound-feet of torque, and an 8-speed automatic transmission. The transmission came with the 2016 model year. That was the big upgrade here. Fuel economy rated at 13 mpg city, 18 mpg highway, and 15 mpg combined. Now, if you watch my videos, you know that there's usually an order to things when we present different parts of the vehicle. And in this case, we're way out of whack because this was really an off-road test, and I wanted to put that right up front for everybody and get it out of the way. So now we're going to talk about some of the other stuff, and the engine is one of them. We just laid that out for you. And the big thing here is that this is the same engine, as I said, that you're going to find in the Tundra pickup. And there I praised it because it's very smooth, it's refined, it's got a nice sound. And here, this 8-speed transmission really makes a big difference over the previous generation. And what that really does, more than fuel economy, because honestly, it doesn't really do much for fuel economy, it's all about drivability, because now you've got more cogs between 0 and whatever speed you're getting up to. So if you're driving along and you put your foot in it, there's more choices for the computer, and it really delivers a nice quick punch. Woo! And I better slow down because there's a speed limit out here. But nonetheless, horsepower's just fine for this vehicle, I think, especially given the weight of this. It's not supposed to be a high performance vehicle for blowing and going out here on a highway. So what is the outcome here when it comes to fuel economy? Well, as the Toyota guys told me, they didn't really get a bump in fuel economy here. It's rated at 15 mpg for the total combined rating. And in my week with it, I did achieve just a little bit more, about 16 and a half. And that's based on the computer here. So if we back it down to 16 just to be safe, that's where it's at. So 16, pretty thirsty, but honestly, that's the reason why cattle guard. That's a reason why we don't have body-on-frame SUVs in any large numbers anymore, because not only are they expensive, but they're thirsty. And if this were a car, it'd have a gas guzzler tax. So it's a truck, and it doesn't. The politics of regulation there. But when it comes to scoring this powertrain, it's awesome, I think. It's perfect for this vehicle. 5 out of 5 stars. The interior of the Land Cruiser always sort of used to be this trucky old school interior, and it still kind of is, but it got a big makeover for 2016. The switchgear, the center stack, the overall design in here, a little bit less old-fashioned, a little bit more up to speed with modern features. Now, is it comfortable? Yeah. The big thing about this is way different than most vehicles in its class is you still feel like you're sitting up in a truck, up in an SUV. You're sitting on this vehicle looking down over the hood. Very rare in this class anymore. They've all sort of gotten this car-like feel inside that not a lot of buyers like, but if you like SUVs, if you like the off-road type of feel, it's still nice to have this sort of trucky truck kind of thing going on in here. The materials in here, Lexus quality. The fit and finish, very good. The switchgear really got a bump up for 2016 and 2017. Down here on the center console, this has more controls than most people are ever going to fully understand. It's a nice bank of switches that have to do with the off-road, the transmission, a lot of adjustments having to do with what you're going to be doing off-road or in low traction situations. This has heated and cooled front seats, heated steering wheel. One note on the switchgear, if you spend any time around Toyotas, you know that from the lowest cars all the way up to the top, often you find some of the same hardware. And like down here, I've got the same mirror switch. I had it in a 2004 Toyota and a Scion. Cruise control switch the same way. The good news is they're good switches even down in the lower levels, so they're not out of place here. The instrument cluster through the steering wheel here is 2 big dials with 4 separate gauges out on the outskirts. So there's a lot of gauges there, and there is a center screen which has all the customizable stuff that you'd expect with modern vehicles, and you can control that here with the steering wheel, trip computer, infotainment, all sorts of things, as well as the fact that this has all the latest driver assistance aids with the TSSP safety system that's part of Toyota vehicles now. These seats are very comfortable, semi-aniline leather, the same essential leather hides you're going to find in the Lexus LS sedan. Here, nice chocolate brown. You can also get them in black. I happen to like this chocolate brown quite a bit. Adjusting and getting your space is very easy. I've got a tilt and telescoping steering wheel here, power seat, of course, both sides. And over here, I do have memory settings for the driver's seat, but not over there on the passenger seat. Down in the center stack, there's a place down here for your phone where you can charge. You've got sort of the old school pull-off tab here where you've got USB and auxiliary and cup holders as well. But the big thing that's very cool here is you've got a cooler built in to the center console. There's actually room for about 6 water bottles down here, and it'll keep anything cold in there, candy bars, sodas, whatever it might be, even on the hottest of days. Hey, back here in the back seat, this is a pretty darn comfortable space, and I'm talking about space first of all. Plenty leg room. I'm about 5'9", so these seats up front are set for me, which means they're right in the middle between forward and back. Lots of legroom, lots of headroom back here. And the big thing I'm really noticing that really sets this apart from a lot of vehicles I sit in the back of is the fact that these are nice, soft, cushy seats. They're Lexus-like in that way. And they should be for this price. They're leather, of course, just like up front. I've got heated seats back here, very nice bonus. And the seating position, as you can see, it's a little bit lower. My knees are perched up just a little bit, but it's not so bad that I'm complaining about it. There's adjustments back here. You've got a fore and aft adjustment, as well as a recline adjustment. Both of those good for you, but for those people that might be in that third row seat back there. There's some nice amenities back here. We've got air vents, of course. There's also climate controls back here for whomever might be back here. And there's also controls for the theater system that's back here. And I got to point that out because this is standard. This is standard equipment on this big 11-inch screen that's adjustable. So it's just a really nice back seat compartment back here. Now the third row back there, actually not too terribly bad. It does have room for adults if you push these seats up, and I'm not really showing it to you, but it is back there. But as we look at the back compartment back there, you can see that these seats all do fold down, but not quite like they do in the more modern SUVs that are out there. That third row, they actually flip up, and so they're kind of in the way, and they do take up some space back there, but this is old school. What can I say? Now the second row, also kind of the same sort of deal. They do fold down in a 60-40 split. You can just lay the tops down, or you can tumble them all the way forward. Now, you don't get a completely flat load floor no matter what you do here. That's part of the old schoolness of this SUV. It still has sort of the 20 years ago thing going on when it comes to how these seats fold down. Now, if you really wanted a big open space, you could get out a wrench and take these things out. Lastly, there's a spare tire down there. Now, it's not down under the floor like in modern SUVs. You have to actually get under the vehicle to get to it, but it's a real spare tire, not a temporary, and even better, it's on a matching alloy. Pretty good. So I got to tell you, I'm pretty impressed with this interior. Yes, it's a little bit old school in the look and the feel of it, but it's very high quality. Therefore, I give it 5 out of 5 stars. When this got a refresh inside, one of the big things that really got to step up was the infotainment system. Now we've got a larger screen, and it's essentially the same system you're going to find in a lot of Lexus vehicles relative to the menu, the graphics. It all looks very good. It's a touchscreen, but there's also a duplicate set of controls here and there. There's volume down here, there's tuning, and that's a great thing. And it also has the JBL sound system. Now, I don't know how many speakers or how many watts this has. I admit I didn't do all the homework on there, but what I did do is listen to it. And at the end of the day, you can go to their website to get all those specs, but what I can tell you is the fact that it sounds absolutely wonderful. And JBL systems and a lot of other Toyotas that I've driven don't always sound so good, but this one actually is well up to the price tag of this vehicle. Now, the one thing I do need to point out about this infotainment system is the fact that the HVAC controls are down here on a separate bank of switches, but the one most important switch is the fan speed, and it's not down there. You actually have to go down here and hit a button that says climate, bring up a different menu, and then use buttons up here on the touch screen to adjust your fan speed. And then of course you got to hit audio to go back to audio, or nav to go back to nav. It's a little bit odd. So the controls on this, even though they've gotten a lot better, there's a couple little intricacies that could use some improvement. The last thing is it's not fully featured yet, at least when it comes to connectivity. We do not have Android Auto. We do not have Apple CarPlay, and that really is missing in this price range, I think. So infotainment gets 4 out of 5 stars. Now, if you watch my reviews, one of the things you know is the last big measure of any vehicle's quality, fit and finish. I'm a stickler for these things. I go over a vehicle, I run my hands down the grooves and the joints, I grab the trim and pull on it, I listen for rattles, and I basically try to get the feel of the thing overall. And I got to tell you here, there's a reason this thing costs a lot of money, because it's essentially a Lexus in terms of its overall quality, Toyota reliability. The build here absolutely flawless. I wasn't really able to pick apart one single thing on this during my entire week with it, and especially out here in the rough, no rattles and squeaks that made me think, boy, they could have tightened this thing up just a little bit. So it goes without saying that quality comes in at 5 of 5 stars. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the Land Cruiser, you might have noticed this thing's been completely filthy dirty from start to finish in our video. I never even cleaned the thing up, even when we did our interior bits. And the people at Toyota, you viewing out there, you might say, how could you do this with a vehicle that cost $85,000? Well, I did it to make a point, and that is, there's an old adage out there where people say, oh, nobody spends this much money on an SUV and gets it dirty or really goes off-roading with it. Well, I got to be honest with you, I completely disagree, especially with this vehicle. As you saw, it does have the capability. It can get dirty, and it still looks pretty good dirty in my opinion. And The bottom line is that I really do like it. I was very impressed, as you can probably tell. Therefore, I'd buy it with my own money. It goes on my I'd buy it list for 2016. Why? Well, let's look at the price, $85,000. That seems like a lot of money, but I dare you to name me another luxury SUV out there on the market this competes with that has the same level of capability, the same level of luxury and features inside, and most importantly, the same level of quality and reliability. Go for it. Name me one. And that really does make it a good value in my opinion, which I put at 5 stars. When you put that in with everything else we've already talked about, we're 5 stars for the review. Excellent. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. So the last vehicle I brought out here was actually a Toyota also. It was the Toyota Tundra TRD Off-Road. It's the last vehicle that I've been given to test that I felt comfortable bringing out here on this course. And I drive a lot of crossovers and SUVs, but, well, just not all of them are really cut out for this. And it's just, I don't know, maybe it's a coincidence that this also happens to be a Toyota. And of course, this does share a lot of DNA with both the 4Runner and the Tacoma when it comes to its engineering pedigree. So there's that. Now, if you like the test drive, I invite you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can do that by clicking on the big red link right there on your screen. We test drive 1 or 2 vehicles a week and have a new video almost every other day. There's always something new. That's because it's a passion. So stay tuned.